Today we're going to be doing the week 1 final assessment. This is of the Excel Skills for Business Intermediate 2 from this university. Hopefully we can get this all done with one shot so I don't have to explain myself once again. Anyways, when you finish watching this video, here are some of the skills that you should be able to understand. You can pause right here, read them, and then proceed. It's not very important that you know the name of these. Rather, it's more important that you know how to execute them and when to use them. So let's get started. So which column contains data validation? That's our first task. Okay, now we have this table opened up. Let's find which column has data validation. So first of all, we would need to highlight the entire section. Command, Shift, and then the right arrow, then down arrow to highlight everything. Now we hit find and then we hit data validation. Since they're asking us to find this, that's what we're looking for. So within column J, there is data validation. Okay. One of the cells in the column contains invalid data. Use the data validation tools to search for any invalid data and correct it. Which cell contains invalid data? Okay, so use the data validation tools to find invalid data. Okay, let's do that. So, once again, highlight it, Command Shift arrow to the right and the arrow down. Data. This is the data validation. So you can see the check and the cancel. Circle invalid data. That's what we're doing. So, there we go. So over here, we can find invalid data in this series of data. So what is wrong with this? Well, if you look closely, that's a P at the end. If you look closely at these, this is a D at the end. So it's simply a misspelling of the state. So QLD, and there we go, instantly fixed. Now let's note back to there of J14 was the invalid cell. Okay, find the cell where data validation has been applied unnecessarily and remove the data validation from the cell. Which cell contains unwanted data validation? So this is a very similar question to number 1, where we look for data validation in the first place. So it should be within column J that we're looking for this. I would recommend highlight everything once again. We can look in the find data validation. And once again, we have this column. So if you look closely though, it's not just this column that's highlighted. It's nothing in the bottom. So yeah, it is this. It is J3. And as you can see, there's a drop-down list here, and that's just unnecessary. So J3 is where this unwanted data validation is. Okay, there we go. Now, apply a drop-down list to M6 with these 3 states and create a formula in O6 to calculate the number of jobs in the selected states. So let's focus one part at a time. So applying a drop-down list to M6 with these different states. Okay, let's do that. So how do we do that? M6, okay. The first thing we need is go back to data validation. Like I said, this chapter is all about data validation. Hit data validation, click the first one, and now we're trying to create a drop-down list of our customized names of the states. It could be names of anything in your situation. So list, it could be QLD, next, NSW, and VIC. So these are the three different states, and when we do this, it will list out the states within that cell. So there'll be a down arrow, and instantly I can see the 3 different states. Okay, let's go back for the second part of the problem. Create a formula in O6 to calculate the number of jobs in the selected states. So when we look at this, it's not telling us to sum anything. It's not telling us if something. It's rather telling us to count if. So in this case, we use a count if function. So when we put in the function, you'll get a better understanding of that. So count if, and the first thing we're looking for is that range. This is the range we're looking through. So once again, highlight the entire range. There we go. And let's just absolute cell reference this. So basically it doesn't slide down lower and lower. And then the criteria we're looking for is this, which is the different states. And the whole point of the drop-down list before is so that we can adjust this very easily. So M6, enter, and boom, 16. So that basically means that within this column, QLD shows up 16 times. That's simply what it means. And then let's go back to the question and ask and look for which state they're wanting. So they want the number of jobs in VIC. So no problem. VIC 24. Answer is 24. Apply a drop-down list to cell M10 with 3 different states, once again, either from scratch or copying the validation from M6. Okay, so to save us a little bit of time, we're going to just do exactly what we did here, but we're going to put it here. It's very simple. So first of all, you want to copy it. So edit, copy, like you normally do, but don't paste just yet. Hit the paste up top, the down arrow, and hit paste special. Then paste the validation. So it will paste the 3 different options like of the different states before, instead of changing the value. Hit OK, and here we go. Like I said, we can just copy down the validation like that. Let's look at the next part of the problem. Now, it's to create a formula in O10 to calculate the total profits from the job in the selected states. Okay. Calculate the total profits from the job in the selected states. So that is asking us to sum, not to count like before. This was to count how many times VIC showed up. This is to add all of it together and then give me a result at the end. So let's do that. It's telling us to look for the total profits from the job in QLD. So how do we know what the profit is, first of all? There's the quoted price. There's the project cost. Assuming there's no other cost and taxes and things like that, the profit is the price minus the cost. So let's make a section where the profit is stated. So profit, boom. Now we have price minus the cost. So 99,000 minus 90,000, and we get 9,000. That's correct. Now we want this information for everything. So instead of doing it one by one, you can just double click and all the results will show up like that. So now we know the profits. Now, like I said before, we're not counting this time. We're not counting how many times something shows up. Rather, we're adding if it fits this rule or this criteria. So therefore, we're using SUMIF function. So SUMIF, first thing is the range we're looking for. So the range we're looking through is the states. So highlight all of that. Next, the criteria. So how do we judge that we should use a certain row? So we should use a certain row when we do that it is matched with M11, which is the different states. And once again, we have a drop down so that we can change that state very easily. And the last part is the sum range. So we want it to sum these numbers when QLD shows up. So anytime it's like a QLD here, it'd be 9,000 plus 14,760 plus 9,450 and so on for all of it. Hit close the bracket, hit enter. And there we go. That's how we find the total profits every time QLD shows up. This also works when we change it. So if we were to change it to NSW, it would give us the profits for NSW. Let's see which one they're asking for in the question. They're asking for QLD. So put in the numbers only, no currency. Okay, no problem. QLD, here is the profits. We copy that over, and then we remove all of the extra stuff. So take out the decimal, take out the comma, and take out the currency. There we go. Number 6, apply a drop-down list to cell N14 with the numbers 1, 2, 3, all the way to 9. Okay, we can do that. So at this point, we know how to put the data validation, and we're doing a list. So the list of numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Hit OK, and boom, there we go. 1 all the way to 9. Now, what else do they want? And apply conditional formatting to the number of people column to find out the number of jobs with more than the number of people in the cell N14. Okay, so basically highlight when the number of people column has more than the number of people in the cell for N14. Okay. Number of people column, we're going to highlight all of that. And what's the metric? Well, we go to home, conditional format, which is essentially showing you where certain things are a little bit more easily. So when it's greater than this number. So basically, this will turn red whenever we have a greater number of people than here. Okay. Let's just double check once again if it's greater than. With more than the number of people in cell N14. And then how many jobs have more than 8 people? So simply we put 8, and the results will be 9 because that's what's more than 8 people. So let's count this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So this is a great way to instantly show you which factors you want. So 7 is our answer here. 7 jobs have more than 8 people. Number 7, apply data validation to the job number column to avoid duplicate numbers. Okay, job number column. So because these are all individuals, once again, we can go to conditional format to show us where the duplicates are. So highlight cell rules when there are duplicate values. So basically, show me when there's a duplicate value in this group. Okay, so there's VIC 005, VIC 005. Obviously, that's impossible, and we do not want the same job number. So ultimately, they're asking for where it is. So it's in B10 and it's in B19 that there is duplicate values. B19. Let's just double check. Okay, we're good to go. Add data validation to the markup percentage column to have any number between 0.1 and 0.5. Okay, no problem. So markup percentage, once again, highlight data validation to be a decimal number that is between 0.1 and 0.5. So this way, essentially, there's no way that we can have a number higher than 0.5. So if you wanted to put 0.6, it wouldn't allow you. And let's just put an error alert just for the sake of it. Stop. Markup percentage to invalid. And then the error message can be markup has to be between 0.1 and 0.5 so that people know. So this is the error message that will pop up when we have these criterias. So hit OK. And now we have this. So for example, if I wanted to put 0.6, which is obviously not allowed, hit enter and our pop-up shows up. So we are successful in that. So now what do they want? Which is the best option for the type of data validation criteria? So like I just said, it's a decimal because this is a decimal range of numbers. The job start date column should be validated to have the job date after 2015. Okay. Which is the best option for this type of data validation criteria? Apply the validation to this column. Okay, so basically we want that the job start date is after this date. So job start date, highlight this row, data validation, and the date has to be, it's not between, it's greater than that starting date. So that starting date is once again, okay, 7/1/15, hit OK, and there we go. So what did we do? We did a greater than, because it's greater than that start date. It's after that start date. Lastly, copy the job start date column data validation to estimated finish date column. Which cells contain invalid data, if any? Okay, so like we did before, copy it, but don't paste it. Don't paste yet. Go to paste special and then hit validation and hit OK. And there we go. We put that set of criteria into here. And then the last thing they wanted us to do is to highlight the certain cells that contain invalid data. So simply put, we can go back to data, data validation, circle invalid data. So within this section, there's one cell with invalid data, and that's E62. So let's plug that in, E62. And that is how you do, there we go, 100. Perfect. That is how we do week 1 final assessment.